Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 27, text 10. Nivita Buddhi Avastano Duri Bhutanya Darshana Upalabayadatmanam Atmanam Chakshuve Savarkam Atmadrik Nivrita Buddhi Avastano Duri Bhutanya Darshana Upalabayatmanam Atmanam Chakshusevarkam Atmadrik Nivrita Buddhi Avastano Duri Bhutanya Darshana Upalabayatmanam Atmanam Chakshusevarkam Atmadrik Nivritta Buddhyavastano Duri Bhutanya Darshana Upala Bhatyatmanam Atmanam Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshana
Duri Bhutanya Darshana
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Ubalatmanatmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritya Buddhyavastano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshana
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Upalatmanam Atmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Upalatmyam Atmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritta Buddha Avastano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Upala Bayat Manatmanam
Upalatmanan Atmanam
Takshu Shevad Arkam Atmadrik
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Upalatmanam Atmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik
Nirvita Bhuta Avasthano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshana
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Upalabhyatam Atmanam
Upalatmanam Atmanam
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmatre
Chakshu Sevarkam Atmadrik Jai Gora Nitai Ki Jai. Do we have online chanters?
Nivrita Buddhyavasthano
Nivritya Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Uplabhyatmanatmanam
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Nivritta Buddha Avasthano
Nivritta Buddhyavastano
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Duri Bhutanya Darshanaha
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Upalabhyatmanatmanam
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik
Chakshushevarkam Atmadrik. Okay.
So that's everyone? We'll do word by word sentence. Nivritta.
Nivritta.
Transcend. Buddhyavastanaha. The stages of material consciousness. Duri Bhuta. far off. Anya, other. Darshanaha, conceptions of life. Upalapya, having realized. Atmana, by his purified intellect. Atmanam, his own self. Chakshusha, with his eyes. Eva, as. Arkam, the sun. Atmadrik, the self-realized. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One should be situated in the transcendental position, beyond the stages of material consciousness, and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky. Consciousness acts in 3 stages under the material conception of life. When we are awake, consciousness acts in a particular way. When we are asleep, it acts in a different way. And we are in deep sleep, consciousness acts in still another way. To become Krishna conscious, one has to become transcendental to these 3 stages of consciousness. Our present consciousness should be freed from all perceptions of life other than consciousness of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Duri Bhutanya Darshana, which means that when one attains perfect Krishna consciousness, he does not see anything but Krishna. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that the perfect devotee may see many movable and immovable objects, but in everything he sees the energy of Krishna is acting. As soon as he remembers the energy of Krishna, he immediately remembers Krishna in his personal form. Therefore, in all his observations, he sees Krishna only. In the Brahma Samhita 538, it is stated that when one's eyes are smeared with love of Krishna, Premanjana Bhakti Charita, he always sees Krishna outside and inside. This is confirmed here. One should be freed from all other vision, and in that way he is freed from the false egoistic identification and sees himself as the eternal servitor of the Lord. Chakshu Sevarkam, as we can see the sun without a doubt, one who is fully developed in Krishna consciousness sees Krishna and his energy. By this vision, one becomes Atmadrik, or self-realized. When the false ego of identifying the body with the self is removed, actual vision of life is perceivable. The senses, therefore, also become purified. Real service of the Lord begins when the senses are purified. One does not have to stop the activities of the senses, but the false ego of identifying with the body has to be removed. Then the senses automatically become purified, and with purified senses, one can actually discharge devotional service. So yeah, I mentioned that a lot of times, that the goal, engaging in devotional service and purifying the sense of the mind by engaging in devotional service. The goal is to engage in devotional service with purified senses of mind. Right, so that's what Prabhupada's saying here. And then, let's see, there's something here about the cheating propensity. All right, so when someone has to give up the activities of the senses, right? So, or he's saying one does not have to give up the activities of the senses, right? So, a rascal, he can think, oh, okay, so I can still engage in my nonsense, and I just want to identify with my false ego, right? So, because I think that's what they were doing, or what it was in the Mayavad school that I was reading and studying. But we didn't really have any active engagement, you know. We didn't have any positive engagement. You know, we were doing some breathing, some breath exercises, concentrating the mind, right? Focusing on the void, right? So, but they were talking a lot about detachment. So become like, I still had all my stuff and I'm still doing all my stuff and it still meant a lot to me. But psychologically, I guess, spiritually, my spiritual life, you know, I want to become focused and steady, centered, become one all the time, right? And so I was just so it's a psychological. They're saying it's a psychological detachment. But even in Krishna consciousness, we can still be attached to these things psychologically, although we're not physically attached to these things. They're not with us. We no longer have them. We left them at home. They probably tossed them out, sold them, gave them to the Goodwill by now. Right? You know? So, well, when I went back to my parents' house, they still had my guitar. But my tape collection at the boys' home was completely stolen. It was wrecked. They stole my tape player. They stole all my tapes. I worked really hard for it for the 2 years before that, too, for get these. You know, what were they? Oh, they were the essentials that you had to have when you were a teenager, when you're in 1975 and 1976. Let me put it that way. So, yeah, when I joined the temple, when my parents came to see me, and that was kind of weird too, because there's all the devotees, you know, and then here's these karmis, and they happen to be my mother, and my stepfather, and my father, and my brother, and my sister. In fact, they didn't really recognize my sister to be my sister because the girls in our family had dark skin. Because I guess apparently my great grandmother married a Spaniard, and she was from Germany. So the girls in our family, they got dark skins. And that's the weird thing about our family. No, we didn't resemble each other. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, they actually really talk about how when we obtain our body from our mother and father according to our karma, that they resemble each other. They resemble their mothers and fathers. Their children resemble them. Right, but our family was completely different. Everybody was completely karmically different in physical appearance. Oh yeah, here, put it right here. Put it right here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll help my sinuses. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, that's Maharaj's mercy. So, so the Bhakti Vilochana. I was listening to the verse. There's a class to tomorrow's verse, and his name was Param Brahma Prabhu. I thought he was a sannyasi. I thought he was one of the sannyasis. He's a good, eloquent speaker. He's from India. So he was saying, well, there's the 3 verses. He was talking about this one, the Bhakti Vilochana, and the Brahma Samhita is the eyes anointed with the salve of love. So that's what Prabhupada was saying. Chakshu, Sashtra Chakshu, Shastru Chakshusha, right? Sashtra, seeing through the eyes of Shastra. So this is the word Chakshusha here with his eyes, right? So seeing knowledge through the eyes of Scripture. So here we understand so many different ways. We just explained creation again, right? And so many different the perceptions of the specific elements and how they are combined and created, and how they are coming forward from more subtle to more gross, along with the perceptions, as well as the working senses, knowledge acquiring senses, mind, intelligence, and false ego. False ego, mind and false ego is a big point in like spiritual life and in meditation. Focusing the mind, Krishna says, from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it, bring it under control itself. And Prabhupada talks about Shobadal spiritualists, one who restrains his senses and organs of action, but within whose mind dwells on sense objects. One must certainly, it's one who restrains the senses and organs of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself, and is called a pretender. So that's the same thing. Withdraw the mind from the sense objects, right? So when you find out that you're doing these things, the mind wanders to a lot of different things, right? Different scenarios, different contemplation of the senses, different combinations, So, so what Param Brahma he was talking about, he was saying also some very, very famous verses in in Bhagavad Gita, and these are like basically the nutshell verses, or the what do you call it? These essential verses in Bhagavad Gita to memorize, like key verses. Yeah, the chapter slokas. Oh no, but what he said in Bhagavad Gita was these two verses. He was saying, Sarva Dhamma Prityaja Mamekam Saranamaja Ham Twam Sarva Papibhyo Moksha Mima Sijaha. So he said, well, one must give up all varieties of religions or all varieties of other activities, so sense perceptions, mental speculations, right? And just surrender unto me, right? I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. I shall relieve you from your karma. Krishna, that's what he was saying. Krishna promises to relieve you from your karma, from your past sins of your activity, and to purify you, and so that you can go back home, back to Godhead. Right. So, and then they said the other real important verse, Tadvini Pranipatena Parishpasnena Sevaya. What's the rest of the verse? So one must approach a spiritual master and surrender unto him and submissively inquire from him. And the self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So it's these two verses. That's actually the verse that I used when I wrote my initiation letter. Probably everybody must have thought of it at least if they didn't include it in the initiation letter. But so yeah, he was talking about those two verses, and these are real important verses to remember. Let's see. Let me try to think of what else. He was saying like a lot of different things that I wanted to remember. So yeah, Srimad Bhagavatam also talks about that too. The 3 stages of consciousness. There's wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. So apparently in deep sleep, super soul is reached. But in deep sleep, one is completely out. They're not dreaming. You don't remember your dream. But they said in this specific state of consciousness, super soul is reached. So then there's a dreaming stage, right? And then there's the wakefulness stage. So if we practice during our wakefulness stage, thinking about Krishna according to Shastra, scripture, Prabhupada was saying, just don't see a tree, see Krishna's energy, right? There's a living entity in there, and the living entity's in the tree for a reason, according to his karma, right? And it's a combination of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Of course, we know it works in a certain way. It's got these roots. Prabhupada was talking about in this tape. It's got these roots. And the tree's hanging on like anything into the ground and the soil with these roots, right? Just hanging on like anything, right? And so then there's these roots also fulfill another purpose too. The tree eats through its roots. So there's Prabhupada was talking about that, how there's like when you, what was it? It's saying, who eats through its legs? Yeah, what kind of living entity eats with its leg? Right, it's a tree. Prabhupada was saying, what is a person who is walking with 3 legs? Is an elderly man with a cane, right? Prabhupada he was speaking about quite a few of these different anomalies. So that's the process with trees. Through the photosynthesis process, the tree is gaining so much energy through its leaves. And during the wintertime, it discards its leaves. The tree looks like it's dead, it's dormant, it goes to sleep. They must be annuals or something. They're still alive, but they're more in a dormant state of consciousness. You don't have those pretty green leaves on them. You have those brown autumn gold leaves, like kind of laying around, avocado green, kind of sapphire. What do they call that? Amber. Different colors of of Thanksgiving kind of season, right? But they're nice and green. So Prabhupada was saying what they're doing is they're storing up energy from the sun. So there's fire which is dormant within the wood because it soaked up so much energy from the sun for so long that the energy is dormant, but when the proper conditions are met, a spark or fire, right? Then the dormant fire within the fuel within the wood becomes manifest. So that's like in the same way our Krishna consciousness right now is in its dormant state, being in the material world, being embodied with the material body, fortunate enough to have come to a human form of life and getting the association of a pure devotee. And that's very, very rare. And so if you kind of notice, we're just a small handful group, and we're the ones who are responsible for holding back pernicious effects of Kali Yuga. The point of the fact of the matter is that it does work. And so, so we're also trusted to, as long as one acts in the proper capacity, then one is actually authorized, right, to so we're actually being authorized to speak about Krishna. Oh yeah, that's what Pa Brahman was saying. So Jai Gora Nitai Ki Jai. Because I was thinking in the material world by the time we graduate high school, they actually really did want the answers, but what they really wanted was, I don't know, right? Isn't that what happened by the time we graduated? We didn't go off like the scarecrow in the Wizard of Oz and do all these calisthenics and stuff when we got our diploma. We were like in I don't know mode. I don't know. I don't care. Right. That's very much the result of our education in the material world. Right. We learn how to commit sinful activities and some. Right. And what most of the karmis are they criminally insane or what? Or there's just the few, or they're all crazy. So, anyways, Brahma was also talking about that. Prabhupada said this too, that the presence of Krishna is everywhere. It's through Krishna's agencies. Like in a higher sense, if everything is Krishna, they're saying there's no difference between the servitor and the served in the higher sense, right? But but what he's saying is that like what Prabhupada said, Mr. Ford in the Ford Motor Car Factory, he would be seen in every nook and corner of his factory because it's his factory. This is like his energy, right? He's well, I guess they're Henry Ford conscious at the Ford Motor Company, right? They probably have his picture there. I understood he had like a desk, and he had some buttons installed on his desk. And they were trying to criticize him that he was actually illiterate and he didn't go to school. He doesn't have a diploma. Yeah, nowadays you have to have a bachelor's degree and a associate's degree and a master's degree. You can't get anywhere even with your high school diploma. Right. And so, back then they didn't have all these restrictions, but I guess he started his own company. So there's no restriction on somebody to start his own company. So he was saying, hey, you know what? Anything I want to know, all I have to do is press one of these buttons and somebody comes in there and tells me exactly what I need to know. Right. When I need to know it. Right. So that's actually a powerful person. So he was saying, so then Krishna would be perceived all throughout the universe by his agencies, right? So let me think of how. Well, I guess that was the explanation for that. But specifically, it's through Krishna's agencies. Krishna has his agencies, the demigods, and the universe is working in systematic order. The sun is rising every day without fail. It doesn't call in sick. He doesn't bloop. Right? Every day without fail, like clockwork. So all the demigods. So these are all Krishna's entrusted agents. And they're under the control of Krishna. Krishna is directly controlling them. You have a question? Yeah, okay.
I was just wondering about, like, you just said that the demigods are Krishna's entrusted agents, but sometimes, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to like Indra or any of the other demigods, but sometimes I see that, especially with Indra, he kind of does some sketchy things. So I was wondering, like, not why, but like,
Like what the situation is with it?
yeah, like I guess it is like why sometimes do the demigods kind of deviate from
Yeah.
Dharma?
Well, that's one of the things Maharaj was kind of mentioning, and somebody kind of mentioned that about Indra, how Indra got his eyes. Originally, there was something else. He was thinking about something all the time. His wife is Urvasi. If you just happen to just see her, you fall down. So, what was it? So, they. Let me think exactly what the demigods' positions are. In the heavenly planets, Maharaj was saying that when somebody saves up and they put in their request for their 2-week vacation and they pay to go to the Bahamas and Tikis and Acapulco, kind of the Caribbean. Boy, they really took their vacation this time, didn't they? And so they paid for this. They paid for their vacation. They don't want somebody saying, "Hey, you know what? You really need to be detached from matter. You really should go to the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting tonight." It's like, forget eating at those restaurants. Meat eating is sinful, right? So, you should have separate cabins, right? So. They paid for it. This is their vacation. This is their karma. So the demigods, they put in their karma. And demigod worship is very, very highly elaborate. And it's got to be totally perfect. And they donate a lot of money, right? They passionately donate a lot of money, right? There's a Ganesh deity at the Hindu temple. But if you go down and see the deities in the Hindu temple, they're like, they look really nice and everything, but they're so materialistic, they're scary. They're really plush. Have you ever seen them? They're really plush and beautiful, really opulent and everything. And you just kind of like, oh, come on. Kind of a thing kind of going with them. You kind of, there's a whole room of Shiva Linga worship. So the demigods, they're performing enjoyable activities, right, on a very, very high scale, right? The equivalent of such would be like here in the material world, brothels, bars, liquor shops, right? But we are acquiring karma and sinful activities for doing that in the human form of life on the Earth planet. Right. This is where we're getting all our karma, where we're going down and we're going up. We're at the crossroads, right? We're going to going back to Godhead. This is a rare opportunity from the human form of life. Even the demigods want to become a human on the planet Earth and join the Krishna consciousness movement. So, they're not acquiring karma for engaging in sex and taking intoxication. They got some really heavy duty intoxication in the heavenly planets. This is described. They have their rasa, they've got their cannabis. Let's see, what I say, the rasa drink, the soma rasa, and the nectar of immortality. So this is how they can try to stay in the material world, stay in the heavenly planets longer, is take the nectar of immortality, become immortal, engage in religious pious activities. So they're actually really very pious, and so, but yeah, they have wars. The demons, they raise the wars against the demigods, and there's a big war that's described. Maharaj Katvanga fought for 200,000 years of the demigods, fought on the side of the demigods. So the demigods wanted to give him a benediction for fighting so well on their behalf. So he said, okay, I just want to know when I would die, right? So it just so happened that just by providence, he only had 1 minute left to live, right? It had just acquired just at the right time. So he was informed of this, that he only had 1 minute. So he gathered his wits about him and became fully Krishna conscious in 1 minute, went back home, back to Godhead. So that description's given, but there's also descriptions of the specific battle. Indra was on his elephant and was fighting, and there's challenging words, and his elephant, I'll have to try to remember the name of it, but it's a very, very celestial, famed elephant that Indra rides. So the elephant was beheaded, but they brought the elephant back to life. So there's all these wars. And, so Krishna kind of covers over his devotees, specifically Brahma and Indra and Krishna book and Srimad Bhagavatam. What happened was he was thinking, oh, well, my devotee Indra, he's getting a little puffed up. So I'll have all the inhabitants of Vrindavan stop Indra worship and worship Govardhan Hill. And so Indra, he sent the torrential rains. Those are the Samavarka rain systems, which are actually meant to destroy the universe at the end of the universe. So this isn't an ordinary storm. And Krishna held the Govardhan Hill. So Indra, he came to surrender to Krishna, and I think he came with a cow, and the cow had milk, right? And Brahma, he did the same thing. He took the cows and calves of Krishna and put them in a cave and came back like a second later, which happened to be a whole year. And he still sees all the cows and calves. He's going, what's going on? So he looks back in the cave. They're still there, right? He's kind of with the mothers and fathers of the calves and the cows, and the cowherd boys were more affectionate to their children than before. And then Brahma, he looks back again. They're all Vishnu forms. So this was a plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So ultimately, Krishna's ultimately under control. But there's a lot of different things. Lord Shiva had beheaded his son, and so on his wife's request, Parvati, he replaced the head. That's why Ganesh has an elephant head. The head that he got from, it was an elephant's head. I don't know exactly why it was an elephant's head. What happened to his real head? I think it was destroyed or something. But yeah, that's a good question. Maybe I can Google that up and come up with a more detailed, definitive answer, unless Maharaj wants to make a statement about that. But if we try to go do the things that demigods do, we're going to acquire some really heavy duty karma, right? But they're not acquiring the karma because they paid for it to go to their enjoy on the heavenly. But not only that, there's the Tapovana. Now, this is a force. The yogis who want to continue to finish their self-realization go to the Tapovana and perform austerities and meditation along the banks of the holy rivers. And the devotees can go there too and continue to engage in their devotional service. So, there's also worship, there's meditation. The very, very highly Nastika brahmacharis become eligible to go to Brahmaloka and actually become eligible to become a Brahma themselves in their own universe. How about that? Here's the keys to the car. You ready to become Brahma? Here, create a whole universe and drive it for me for a while, will ya? Okay, so does that answer your question, or okay? So any other questions or comments, or maybe you're gonna end class there? Okay, Shrimad Bhagavatam class ki jai.